You're listening to Perfectly Normal. This is a podcast where I bring you love, courage, and connection. I'm your host, Michelle Quay. I'm a confidence and leadership coach where I work with negative self-talkers to get them to believe in the talent that they have in reaching their full potential in both personal and professional life. I'm the founder of Elevate Life Coaching. It's a coaching and seminar company. Welcome to the show. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode. Let's talk about motivation. This week, I'm inspired to talk about motivation. So this is a question I get many times from my clients and also from friends I talk to. A lot of them ask me this question about how do you keep yourself motivated? When they look at me, when they see me, when they look at my social media, they would notice that, every single day, I have a lot of things going. And throughout the year, I have multiple events and things that I am offering and things that I talk about. And people are wondering, like, they come to me and they said, Michelle, I don't know how you do it. You have two full-time jobs, and here you are, you volunteer for nonprofit organizations. So I'm pretty sure that your schedule is very tight. How do you do it? How do you seem to be so enjoying the process of what you're doing? And so they want to know the secret of how they keep themselves motivated. Now, so today the episode will focus on just teaching you that the 3 ways that I actually keep myself motivated the whole entire time. So I wanted to break it down into, first of all, there's 2 major questions that I often ask myself whenever I get up or whenever I'm going to do a project or start launching a new program. And by the way, I'm actually in a pre-launch of a mastermind group. This is going to launch starting in January. It's going to the class is being started on January 13th. I know, right? I have it in my calendar already. This is how motivated I am. So it's a pre-launch. I'm in this pre-launch process. And so every time I have a new project that I want to launch or a new program I want to launch or even a new hobby that I would like to start, the first question that I ask myself is, I take a moment and take a deep breath and ask myself, when do I feel most motivated? I mean, it's kind of obvious, but I think a lot of us don't take the time to ask ourselves that question. When do I feel most motivated? Is it in the morning? Is it in the afternoon? Is it at night? How do I operate? And this is where a lot of people get really hung up or confused, or some people like they're beating themselves up because they're just not a morning person. I have friends who can function so well as night owls, but when you ask them to do things in the morning, they just can't do it. They don't feel motivated. And when it comes to starting a new hobby, if you're starting a hobby that requires you some daylight or daytime or some things to do in the morning, then chances are you're going to wake up and you're not going to feel motivated to do anything. Whereas if it's something that requires your attention at night, then you're probably on top of things 100%. So when do you ask yourself that question? When do I feel most motivated? Ask yourself that question. And what that does is it creates that awareness that you need to understand, like, how do I operate compared to other people? And you may be perfectly functional at midnight or just without a cup of coffee in the morning. So which one are you? When do you feel most motivated? And then the second question I ask myself is, well, if I understand when I'm going to be motivated, what are some of the things that makes me feel unmotivated? Maybe it is some distraction that appears in my life. Maybe it's the people that I'm hanging out with. Maybe it's other. Maybe the weather. I mean, we're in the winter time right now, so winter sometimes it's cold. You don't want to get up in the morning, so it doesn't make you feel very motivated. Or it's if you're thinking about changing your diet, changing the way that you're eating, changing your food, maybe you don't want to eat salad. And this is something, it's true. This is a true story. So when I first started to challenge my physical challenge, I wanted to start losing some weight. And the first thing I did was watching my weight, watching the way that I was eating, watching the way that I was consuming a lot of carbohydrate and all that stuff. So the first thing I did was watching the stuff that I eat. And the way that I tracked it was I love notebooks. So I write in my planner, all the things I ate for that particular day. And since I'm also a clinical pharmacist, so I actually use my knowledge, use the way that I was taught in pharmacy. So I calculate out very detailed what my daily requirement, caloric requirement was. And I remember I was to the point where I was really strict about the food that I eat, and I started to read all the labels when I go to a grocery shop, I pick up all the product and I start reading all the label just so that I have an idea of what I am eating, and I record that into my phone. So for those of you who's looking to keep track of your diet, the food that you eat, or you're tracking the caloric counts, then MyFitnessPal is a great app that I would recommend to anyone who's, keeping an eye out on the food that you eat. And I remember I was doing the calculation, and based on my weight, based on my height, I came up with a really strict diet. And I remember I was sticking to that diet. And every time my friends offer me, something like French fries or hamburger, I would look at it and I would think about how much am I allowed to eat if I consume that French fry, or if I consume that hamburger. And I look at MyFitnessPal, I do the calculation. I'm like, no, is it worth me eating that? Probably not. So during that 1 year where I was really watching my diet, watching the food that I eat, picking and choosing what I eat, what I consume, I lost a lot of weight from just doing that. Just be mindful of what I am eating. And so, those of you who's looking to maybe lose that COVID weight that you have picked up, one thing that I would highly recommend is not to be on a diet per se, but actually to just become mindful of what you're eating. And you can be mindful in so many different ways, right? So when you pick up the food item, make sure you read what is on your food label. And a lot of us, because it's so convenient, we pick it up and we've been using it for a long time. We pick it up and we toss it into the basket, and there we go check out, right? So mindfulness require you to slow down and actually read the food label. And here's a rule of thumb that, at least for me, is that anytime you see an item that has more than three ingredients that you don't even know how to pronounce, or you don't even know what it is, put it back, move on to the next one. And so during that process, I start picking up a lot of fresh food items. I start to meal prep for myself. So I would spend like maybe a weekend and just meal prep myself, pack all my meals so that I know exactly what is going into my body. And that is mindfulness. And mindfulness also comes in the way that we chew our food, right? So a lot of us are busy, and being at home, you're probably bringing your lunch, bringing your dinner to your office, your home office, and you start eating in front of the computer. And when you do that, you are not being mindful of what you're eating. Mindful eating require you to look at the food, enjoying every bite, and slowly eating and enjoying your food so that your body can actually pick up the signal that you are eating, and it will send back the signal that when you are full. If you skip that whole step and just eat and do while doing things, then your body never got a chance to pick up that signal that you are eating, and your body thinks that you're still hungry, so you eat a lot more. So there's so many powerful way that you can practice mindfulness to keep your diet back in track, and it's really not a diet. It's about healthy eating, eating healthy food that nourishes you. So I went a little off track. So the second question, just to go back about the self motivation, the second question I often ask myself how to be motivated is when understanding when do I feel most unmotivated, or what makes me feel most unmotivated. So those are the two main questions that I would often ask myself before I start a project. And you don't have to like stand there and start asking you and talking to yourself, right? You can just mentally ask yourself, and yeah, when do I feel most motivated? And for me personally, it happens in the morning. So I'm totally a morning person. The moment that I wake up, I feel very productive and I want to get things done. And as the day progresses, I slow down doing things. So I don't do as much or as many projects throughout at night or late at night because I just can't think very well. I think very well in the morning. I'm more inspired. There's more inspiration, more idea that comes to me in the morning rather than at night. So a lot of time, if you follow me on social media, you'll notice that I have posts. I start posting on my Facebook, on my Instagram, sometimes really early in the morning, like 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, because that was the most inspirational moment when I wake up. And I use that time so that I can move things effectively. Now, to break it down for you in terms of how do you keep yourself motivated at all time, I wanted to break it down into three different categories for you. Of course, there's a lot of different influence that comes up and show up in our life. Maybe the weather change, maybe the you go to a different country or a different place, and suddenly there's some changes and you don't feel motivated. But there are three major areas that can influence or cause us to be unmotivated or to be motivated. So any of the two, you can work either against you or you can actually make it work for you. And these are the three major areas or sections that I want you to start really thinking about. Which of these three sections really affect me the most, and how do I want to address these? So the three category or three sections would be the mental, the physical, and emotion. So what does the mental mean? Mental means that, maybe you are experiencing some overwhelming thoughts. Maybe there's a lot of responsibility that you're picking up and you're being distracted. You start losing your focus because you're trying to do too many things at once. And so our mind can only pick up and pack so many elements in at once, so you feel overwhelmed. So that is the mental aspects of it, and you get distracted and less productive. Now, the physical is kind of really obvious, but a lot of people don't really talk about it, which is the lack of sleep. When you're not sleeping well, when you don't wake up in the morning feeling that you had a good night rest, it makes perfect sense why you would feel unmotivated. Right? When you are tired, you don't feel motivated. When you are not feeding your body the right food, maybe you have some food allergies, and suddenly you decided, what, I'm going to enjoy myself, and there you are. Then you wake up the next day, you don't feel motivated to do anything because your body is still adjusting to what it had experienced the day before. So eating unhealthy food or food that doesn't really nourish you may make you feel physically unmotivated. Now, the last one would be the emotional. Emotional can come in the form of fear. It can come in the form of being sad. Maybe there's some major event that had happened in your life that you feel sad, or, you've been hurt in a relationship, or, that feeling of being hurt by someone or yourself. That can also lead to you feeling unmotivated. So those are the three sections that we can have that awareness of, well, I'm not feeling motivated. I don't feel inspired. I don't feel that creativity is within me. Those are the three sections that I want you to start really focusing on and start asking yourself, which of the three do I need to work on? Now, once you have that awareness, once you understand which of the three areas that is really impacting you the most, then we can talk about the solution, right? So you can have, a lot of people say, oh, don't focus on the problem, focus on the solution. But you can't really have a solution unless you have a problem. If you don't have a problem, then you don't need a solution. I mean, it makes sense, right? Obviously, in order to have a solution, you have to have a problem. So if you don't have a problem, why do you need a solution? Now, if you want the solution, then you have to understand what your problem is. So by having that awareness, you recognize what your problem is, and now we can address it to come up with a solution. So the next step to moving to getting that solution would be so we can tackle on the three different area in our life, right? So the mental, physical, and emotion. So that's it's the mental that's impacting you the most, that makes you feel unmotivated. What is it about the mental? What are some of the things that's happening in your life? Do you wake up and having headache? Are you working under influence? Maybe alcohol, right? So maybe you party too hard the night before, or for some people, maybe they're working under drug influence. If you have a cold and you're taking some Tylenol or some pain relief, and once you take it, it's going to affect your central nervous system. So it makes you feel confused, disoriented, which is why a lot of time when you pick up prescription drugs, pharmacists will tell you don't drive. Why? Because the drug can influence your mental status. It can influence your mental cognitive ability to think, to operate. And those factors will contribute to the fact that you might not feel like doing anything. You're not motivated to do anything because your body is telling you this is what's going on. Take me, give me a chance to rest. So that's the mental aspects of how you might be able to address it. Understanding what is the underlying causes of your mental distraction, of your inability to focus, or why are you overwhelmed, then you can come up with solutions. Now, the second one would be the physical, right? The physical influence or impact that could lead to you not feeling self-motivated. And that can come from, maybe it's cold outside. I mean, the wintertime, who wants to go out and start running? Only those who are super, super motivated and they actually don't mind the cold weather. And so cold outside, the weather can have a lot of impact on our physical influence, or the way that we pick up new habit or starting a new project. And those can actually create other influence, and it can impact your mental status and can impact your emotional. All three aspects are interconnected, and they will influence each other. So if you don't feel if you feel confused, if you have a headache, chances are your body is not feeling well. So physically you might feel tired and you might want to sleep more. So every one of these all these three factors will come interplay to each other. Now, physically, you may also feel tired. You might not have enough sleep. Maybe it's due to the stress that you were experiencing. So, that again, that mental stress that you were feeling before, that's causing you the inability to sleep at night, and which makes you feel really tired in the morning. And therefore, you don't feel motivated. Now, accepting the fact that, yeah, last night I partied too hard and I didn't have enough sleep, that would give you the opportunity to look at, okay, so what are my options here, right? I can go back to sleep. And when I rested, I would feel motivated. So that's always an option of understanding what is the underlying problem and how do I want to address it, so that you can start seeing options. The last section would be the emotional, right? The emotional aspects, which it shows up as fear, sad, or that feeling of being hurt. How do you address these emotional aspects of feeling unmotivated? Once you recognize, and this is something I encourage people to do, is you get into a habit of labeling your emotion. Sometimes we wake up in the morning and there's that feeling. And so, what is that feeling? Maybe that feeling is sad. Maybe that feeling is scared. Maybe that feeling is just, I don't know, lost or grief. Whatever that feeling, that emotion that you are picking up in the morning, the first time you wake up, and or before the project, you labeled it. By labeling it, you acknowledge its existence. You're not pushing it to the side, you're actually facing it, you're addressing it, you're acknowledging yourself for having it. And guess what? Every human being have emotions, so you are not alone for having them. So validate yourself for having these emotions, because we're in a really, really strange time, or period of strange time right now. So it makes perfect sense, and it's perfectly normal to have these emotions as they arises. But if you were to just push your emotion aside and just pretend that they are not here, you're actually giving them a lot of powers by coming back stronger, right? So if you keep avoiding to feel, to cry, or if you keep avoiding the sense of happiness, and which is why, a lot of time we don't want to be judged, we don't want to be looked at as someone who is, well, why is she crying, why is she happy? We tend to push aside our emotions, and we keep holding it back, holding it inside of us, until one day, one moment, you kind of like a balloon that just explode. Yeah, explode. Did I just say explore? Yeah, I did. So explode. Your balloon would explode. Or your rubber band. Imagine that. I often use the analogy of the rubber band. You keep pulling and pulling, and rubber band at some point it lost that resistance, and it's going to break. So by addressing and labeling those emotions, you'll actually allow the rubber band to recoil back to the original state, and you give it time to rest so that you can stretch again. So it's really important to label your emotion. So by understanding which of these three categories or areas of your life that need to have more work done, then you can come up with your own solution. How do I address my physical toll, or physical unmotivation, or physical influence? Well, I can do a couple of things. I can look at, the reason why I am not sleeping well. Maybe I've been doing a lot of work on my bed. So maybe let me change that. Let me do most of my work outside of my bed and start, maybe consider adding some dark curtains, or wearing some eye mask. We wear a lot of masks this year. But so putting some music, maybe do a 5 minutes meditation. All these things and options that you can do that might be able to help you to sleep better at night, right? So if you have if you're currently taking medication, maybe for the time being, between the 7 to 10 days while you're on pain medication, maybe those are the time that you allow yourself to cut back on the amount of work that you have to do during that time, because you understand that during those period of time, you have a tendency to feel, confused or disoriented. And this is the amount of work that I will allow myself to do during those period of time where my body needs to rest. So you start coming up with solutions for yourself once you understand what is it that you are experiencing. So, just to summarize, what are the 3 ways that I personally keep myself motivated is, first of all, make sure that you get a well rested night of sleep. Sleep is so important. We can't function. You don't have to sleep 8 hours. It's really the duration of how you sleep and how much you sleep. It's really individualized. So what works best for you? But make sure you allow your body to rest. And I kind of imagine our body as being the season of changes, right? So season is changes, and so does my body. And when it's wintertime, things will start to want it to slow down. It wants to rest. So I'm going to give myself that chance to actually to slow down and rest. So be sure to sleep well, take a good day rest, and you're going to come back a lot more productive than compared to the days that you didn't. The second way that you can keep yourself motivated is by creating a clear vision and making your goal realistic. And this is something that I see a lot of people struggling, or the reason why they aren't able to really getting to the finish line with their goal is sometimes we're too ambitious about setting up our goals. Take, for example, you want to lose weight, and this is really common when it comes to weight loss. We set up these unrealistic goals that we were trying to achieve. So you only lose like maybe 2-3 pounds, per week or per month. You're slowly getting there. So we tend to have this ambitious goal, and we're trying to make a huge, gigantic step. So have a clear vision of where your goal is, but even more importantly, how realistic is your goal? Can you start running for the next 7 days? Maybe that's not realistic. Can you run for the next 5 days? That sounds a little bit more reasonable. And then maybe think about cutting it back to, well, I really have to work 2 days out of the week. So I can really realistically run 3 days out of the week. So you just cut back from the 7 days to 5 days to 3 days, right? It becomes more realistic. It becomes more achievable rather than just focusing on taking that big jump. You got to take that little baby step first before you actually take a leap. So that's really important to how you can keep yourself motivated. Create a clear vision and also make sure that your goal is realistic. Now, the third way that I keep myself motivated is I get myself a timeline. This is pretty obvious, but I don't think a lot of people actually schedule it in their calendar. So when you have a goal, when you have a vision, and it becomes a realistic thing for you, then put it on your calendar. Put it into your planner if you love planning. Give yourself a deadline when you want to achieve it, by when and how much you want to achieve. Because if you don't give yourself a timeline, we keep thinking that I can just push it back to tomorrow. I can just do that tomorrow. So we keep pushing it till tomorrow, the next day. I think one thing that the pandemic had taught us is that nothing is 100%. Nothing is there for granted, right? So tomorrow is not for granted. Things can change, and a lot of things can happen within a week, a month, a year. So unless you actually get up and start doing it and giving yourself a timeline, things will never happen. So I hope that's something that 2020 had also give you some insights, is that don't take things for granted. And it's funny how I'm talking about this because this morning one of our the group that I belong to, one of the women was sharing that how she has a family member who was experiencing and who got COVID, and she broke down in tears because she realized that how many times she had taken things granted in her life. And so one of the big realization for her was that don't take things for granted. Tomorrow may not be there. And so, yeah, I think this is really important to just kind of not just having a goal. Having a goal is great, but also think about when do you want to achieve it? Is that reasonable? And give yourself a timeline, a deadline. How long, even if you're grieving, if you lost someone or something, um, how long do you plan on grieving? Give yourself a deadline on this is the time that I'm going to give myself permission to be sad, to be in the space. But, eventually I want to be able to move forward. So give yourself a deadline when you want to move forward, and how long you're going to allow yourself to continue to be in that space of, taking things slow and just one step at a time. And then, so once you give yourself a deadline, it's really important to ask yourself these questions. What do you want to achieve through your goals? And this is, again, you want to be realistic and you want to be sticking to the facts, right? So we want to achieve our goals, not because the outcome of it, not the materialistic outcome that we can measure, but more of a satisfaction by the time that we achieve it. Maybe by achieving your goal, you would feel lighter, you would feel happier, you would feel more content and purposeful. What is it that you're trying to achieve, and how is achieving your goal bringing you what you're looking for? And what is it that you're looking for? So you got to be clear and be realistic on those ideas of why you want something in your life and how do you want to make it happen. And those are the important elements that I want you to walk away with it. So just to sum up, today we talked about the 3-way on how I keep myself motivated. And I hope that by sharing these, you would maybe customize it and take it into your routine and think about how you might want to tweak it, make it your own, customize it to what fits your lifestyle. So 3 areas that we had talked about: the mental, physical, and emotion, and understanding each of where is it impacting you the most, and how do you want to address it? How do you want to maybe improve it? Maybe you are already at a good place where, you're mentally alert, you're physically fit, and you're emotionally healthy, and you have great emotional intelligence. Maybe you already achieved all 3. So how do you want to make it even better? I mean, after all, we as human beings, we're constantly evolving. So how do you want to make things better? Now, the 3 ways that I had talked about are getting some sleep, make sure you're physically well rested, and having a clear vision, making your goal realistic, and also lastly, give yourself a timeline. So I hope those are helpful information for you to get yourself feeling motivated and that you're ready to welcome 2021. So I hope you enjoy listening to this podcast, this episode. And if you are new here, let me know, and you can come check out my Facebook group, the Confidence Lab, where you can interact with other like-minded people and connect with them. Maybe if you have questions, you're welcome to pop it in there and just interact with me in the real time. Now, if you like my podcast, make sure you go to the Apple iTunes or Spotify and give me a review. Your review is really important to me, and those are what motivates me to wanted to put out more episodes. So I would appreciate if you head over to iTunes or Spotify and give me a review. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to check out my meditation session, the circles. It's every month, every third Wednesday and the last Wednesday of the month. You can find all these information on my website, and you can go and check out my website. There's a lot of resources for you on my website. And you can find me on my website at elevatelifecoaching.org. Or you can follow me on Instagram at Elevate Life Coach. And I will see everyone next time. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening. In order for this conversation to continue, I would like to invite you to join my private Facebook group, The Confidence Lab for Remarkably Courageous People. This is where we can continue this conversation to bring more love, courage, and connection in helping each other and supporting each other in moving forward in our lives. If you found value in this show, I would appreciate if you can give me a rating on iTunes or Spotify, or simply share this show with a friend who may benefit from hearing it. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. If you'd like to learn more about what I do as a coach, please visit my website at elevatelifecoaching.org or shoot me an email. See you on the next show.